Welcome to the Driveway Beers podcast with Mike and Alex. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share on any platform that you're listening on. All right, welcome back to another show. If you're listening to this episode on a Tuesday, this is your absolute last day to enter the contest for the $25 Amazon gift card. Today is the last day. After this episode, Wednesday, we will look to see who has subscribed on YouTube, who has liked us on liked the Facebook page.
Yep.
And I think there was one more.
Shared.
Yes, you had to follow us.
Yes.
On a podcast platform. So whether that be Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you got to follow us on one of those. So it's YouTube subscribe, Facebook page like, and you have to follow us or subscribe to us on a podcast platform, which for 65% of you, that's going to be Apple.
Yeah.
Again, as we know, and this is kind of our way to spark the handshake agreement that we have with all of you. We provide a whole bunch of free content for you because we enjoy doing it, and in exchange, you guys like, subscribe, follow, and share, and it costs you nothing, but that is our handshake agreement with you, the listener. And like we said, we put it all out for free. You get to listen to as much as you want, and that's the deal. All right. So we have a guest here for a very, very, it's going to be a sensitive topic for a lot of men out there. Women, if you're listening, appreciate you listening. You might gain some insight into the men's mind in this episode.
What there is of the men's mind.
Right, yeah, well, yeah. As much as you want to dive into this.
We'll talk about them too. Don't worry.
We have Luke from a therapist, a Buddhist, and you. The podcast we've been mentioning on this show for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Friends of ours. I think I've known you for at least 5 years now.
Sounds right.
Approximately. I don't remember the date.
It was definitely pre-COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well before that.
Well, yeah.
And he recently started a podcast with his friend Zama, who is the Buddhist. And that, if you couldn't figure out by the names, we don't want to stereotype, but that is a straight up Buddhist name.
He's the real McCoy. He's the real deal. Yeah.
And what's the website?
So I also own a therapy practice, holistic practice in Annapolis, Maryland, called the Recovery. It's recoverycollectivemd.com.
Gonna have you pull the mic a little bit closer.
Yeah. So if you Google Recovery Collective Annapolis, or the website's recoverycollectivemd.com.
And the podcast is a therapist, a Buddhist, and you. All podcast platforms. Are you guys on YouTube or no?
Not yet. Eventually.
Are you guys going to do video?
We are, with the idea of using it for short form for YouTube Reels and TikTok. That's a goal for this year for sure. Free content, man.
TikTok is, I think, I don't know what to make of it. Like the government's starting to ban it. Like state governments already put the ban on it.
Yeah.
Federal government's about to put the ban on it. I mean, it's like...
It's just for their devices, for their...
Only for federal and state devices.
Yeah. So
yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Part of me wants to say it's the devil. But then there's the whole, connection to... They say it's a spot, the Chinese government spying, and I don't know, if that's the case or not, but...
Or is it because the government wants to do their own propaganda?
Yeah.
Well, there's that. Well, I think what the major problem was, they were saying that because China, the state of China, and state, country, whatever you want to call it, but the Communist Party controls the algorithm for that app, and therefore they can feed you whatever content they want, depending on where you are in the world. So basically what they're saying is that someone on mainland China is... a young man or a young boy in mainland China is going to see videos about masculinity. They're going to see, chopping wood, building fires, feats of strength, right? And in the U.S., they're going to feed the same age young man they're going to feed them videos about prettiness and femininity.
Sure.
And
Toxic masculinity.
well, exactly. Well, and maybe they're putting like videos out to men and women, young people of that age, about toxic masculinity to put that idea in people's heads. And I think they're more worried about that than, what data they're collecting. Because let's face facts, everyone's got your data now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cookies.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook knows where I am at all points of the day just by having the phone on me. The amount of data that Facebook collects is crazy.
Yeah, they know where you're scrolling when you're on their pages.
And don't they know like how long you're looking at things?
Yes.
So like if you pause on something for a while, it'll say, okay, this guy's interested in this, and then they continue to. And the thing is, like, part of me said, like, say, oh, it's manipulating the mind and all this stuff. But then also, like, if I'm really into cars, which I am, and I pause on videos that have to do with cars, and they give me more car videos, I'm not really that upset with that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I'm in like a Chevy forum on Facebook. Not a forum. I'm in a Chevy group on Facebook. Because I look at that group quite a bit, they show me more of the posts from that group. Whereas groups I haven't looked in, they don't really show me those posts. So it's almost like I'm not even in the group at all.
Yeah.
And it's because even if I hover, over, like if I don't click on it, even if I just hover on it or over it, like if I'm hovering over a meme, I'll get more memes in my feed. So
And they'll feed you another one like it.
yes, yeah, it's weird like that. Like, I kind of wish they didn't do that, but at the same time, like you said, well, if I like Chevy,
Yeah.
and I'm in a Chevy group, maybe I want to see more Chevy stuff. But at the same time, it's like, how do I get exposed to different things that I may like if they're not going to put it in my timeline and they're the ones deciding what goes in there? Like, I like the old portion where it was like, it was more, you saw more of what your friends posted. But now it's like, I swear, I get so much of the groups and ads now.
Yeah.
It's very few of what my friends
Yeah.
post.
And I think people are posting a lot less. And because I left Facebook for a considerable amount of time, and then I came back to it. It's kind of hard to buy and sell stuff on Marketplace when you've got a burner account with two friends, and they're like, yeah, no, not today, ISIS.
Better join those groups.
So I had to kind of come back, and then the experience from where I left I think I stopped using it. Yeah, I gave it up for Lent in 2019. Till now, it's been much different. Like then, it used to be like friends arguing about stupid stuff and posts and politics, and then there's always everyone has that friend that just got up for breakfast today. Good job. You know what I mean? Me too.
Hey,
Took a poop.
But
Good
listen,
job.
if they post what they ate for breakfast, though, I'm cool with that. I'm down with the food porn. I swear.
Yeah.
Like even though I'm not eating it anymore.
Especially if you're in
still like
Greece.
looking at it.
If you're in Greece or France, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I want to know. I don't know why. Like I know I'm not there on the vacation with somebody, but I still like to see the pictures of it. It's like what like why do people watch like a National Geographic show on Greece? Because they want to see pictures of Greece. That's why. I mean, if my buddy went to Greece, like if you go to Greece, post the damn pictures. I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I ain't going.
Right.
Not now. I mean, who knows? I mean, my wife really wants me to get over to Europe, and we all know how I feel about flying.
It's a lot of flying.
That's a different topic, though, right? That's another pod. Maybe who knows? Maybe that goes into my mental issues. We'll find out today. Maybe you didn't know you were coming to work. You're gonna dig deep in this brain. So, anyways, I mean, this kind of flows in well to mental health because obviously the social media platforms, whether people want to believe it or not, or whether they think it's to the extent that it is or not, it is going to screw with people's minds, and it's done on purpose. And anyone who's watched that documentary, The Social Dilemma, got the backroom insight into, yes, in fact, they're doing this.
Yeah, if that doesn't scare you a little bit.
It scares me a lot.
Yeah.
But the one that scared me more was the Edward Snowden stuff, and that guy's been swept way under the rug because he's still chilling in Russia. Although, how's that working out for him right now with that going on? Because that country may not exist in another 6 months if they keep going the way they're going. Well, at least according to the news. The news says they're losing. Who knows what's going on?
Yeah.
But that guy, and it got so little media attention about how much the United States government is, or I shouldn't say is, has the capability of seeing what you do.
And speaking of that, that the big companies, the Google, the Facebook, all those, they can know where your eyes are going. They can track your eyes.
Yeah.
I'm good if you know where my finger's going. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
When you know where my eyes are, I'm a little bit worried about that.
The only thing is, though, if they know where even if they know where your eyes are, when you look up and away from the phone, I guess they have the ability to turn on the forward-facing camera to see what it is you're looking at. But I think
A little too big brother-ish for me.
well, the other thing is, like, that's a lot of data. Like, think about 360 million people just in this country alone. You have to be actively looking for something in order to find it, for lack of a better term. I mean, yes, they could do like a keyword search or whatever it is to say, okay, all eyes pointed north or something, and they can pull things up by that. But you got to figure 316 million people. You type in eyes facing north, now you got 1 million. It's still a huge amount of data you got to go through.
Sure.
So in order for them, and the way it's kind of been used is, and again, I don't know this for sure. By the way, I was told I need to say a disclaimer before every show that my views are mine alone and not of my employer.
Yeah, okay. Mine too.
Yeah.
Entertainment purposes only.
Yes, the entertainment purposes only. How many times have we told people this is not a factual fucking podcast? Yeah. I could be, like, whatever I'm about to say could be 100% full of shit.
Yeah.
Although I think there's probably some truth in it, because I know there is. But essentially, like, the way they're going to catch you if you're doing anything nefarious, and it's kind of like the way they catch, like, the pedophiles. And this is going to be we're going down a great path when I mention that, right? They find out who to target with the AI, but they still have to go get you. Mm-hmm. And generally in court, the only thing that's going to be admissible is direct conversations. IP addresses are not admissible. So even if I'm talking with you one-on-one, and they have my IP address and your IP address, that is not enough to identify you or me in that conversation. Even if our names are on the damn thing.
So they need the floppy disk is what they need.
So essentially what they do is they use that communication to bring you out into the light. And that's when they can get you. Because then they can prove it was you. Because you came forward. Mm-hmm. Now, they can't prove that all those messages were yours. But they can prove that you showed up. And to the nefarious deed. Right? Mm-hmm. But because IP addresses cannot be used as identifiers, it really makes it tough for them to use it for anything other than just pure data and advertising. Now, the federal government, on the other hand, if they're turning on your camera and they can see it's you, well, then you're kind of fucked. Mm-hmm. That's a different ball game. Google's not doing that. Mm-hmm. They can. They're not doing that. Mm-hmm. Apple's not doing that. Apple wants to know more about you so they can make more money off of you. Pure profit motive. The government, and we've talked about it. How many things does the government do right?
Nothing.
There you go. So, thinking that they can use big data to get anything correct, probably not. It's probably not happening to that level. Can they use it to target? Sure, but you've got to be on the radar.
Like the new version of a wiretap.
Pretty much, because there's no wiretaps anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I shouldn't say that. Can they tap into your cell phone conversations? Probably, but you're not going to tap into somebody's, like, you're not tapping into the payphone because the payphone doesn't freaking work anymore.
Yeah.
And most criminals are using burners, so they're good for a week and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who watched The Wire knows this. I mean, it was detailed in that. Mm-hmm. It was like
They were using pictures of things to like say different, like they cracked the code of the pictures. Like what if it was a picture of a stop sign, it meant a certain type of drug or a certain location. So they would take pictures of locations and said because no one was really looking at the pictures. So
you could imagine though, and again, we're going to steer this back to mental health. Imagine someone who believes that everybody's out watching them. Like, I'm paranoid anyway, to an extent. And that stuff kind of bothers me a little bit. But at the end of the day, I'm like, no one's looking at me. But someone else is going to be like, oh shit, they're always looking at me. And I'm sure that's got to fuck with someone's head. And, I mean, we were talking the other day about one of your incidences when that happened like years ago.
oh,
Years ago.
over 20 years ago. So
Tell the story, because
Yeah,
this is interesting.
So me and my buddy were out on a farm, just doing some trying to sight a rifle in, and somehow in my head I got it that what if downrange somewhere there was like a guy just walking through the woods and we hit him, and no one found him, but then all of a sudden they found him, and now like. So it starts as like a little thought, and then it becomes a
Intrusive thought.
right, and you ruminate over it, and then for me, I think what I'll do, and this happens with all kinds of things, but I get myself like an actual physical reaction to it, like oh my god, they're outside my house right now, and I mean I don't go do things like put tinfoil over my head and stuff like that, but you just, and then when I think oh that's ridiculous. I find ways to defeat the logical argument. So, we made sure that there's, our backs, we had a good backstop, everything was clear, but what if it ricocheted off of something, and then, oh, well, no, it was a soft backstop. It's not ricocheting off of anything. But what if there was a rock in there and it bounced and so it's almost like there's two factions inside. Like one side is the logical side saying, okay, this is not realistic for A, B, C, D. But then the other side defeats A, defeats B, defeats all of those things with something. There's always like a little thread of truth to it.
It could happen.
Right.
It could.
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah. So I have to be like super vigilant, because if I let the thought go, then the bad thing's going to happen.
Gotcha.
So, that's my thing, and my wife can tell when I'm doing it. She's like, everything all right? I'm like, oh yeah, everything's fine.
That side of the brain, though, is like Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
Like, that's how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Like, Mike Tyson is prime, not Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas.
Yeah.
This is like Mike Tyson, everybody else.
right.
And it's just plowing through people.
18-year-old Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like we're talking first round knockout.
Yeah.
And it's that strong. Yeah. And if you can't work yourself out of it, man, days. It can go days and I'll just be in a pissed mood because I'm thinking about something.
Give me your example.
So I'm.
You guys obviously can relate.
Yeah.
So the car one is a big one, and we talked about it in a prior episode with the new car, or the 04 Yukon, 176,000 miles. I'm expecting this thing to be a shit box. It's not. I've driven the thing. It drives fine. There's nothing major wrong with this thing. But until I get it into a mechanic, which is 2 weeks from now, it is like for the last 2 weeks, it's all I've thought about. And the next 2 weeks is all I'm going to think about. And until that car gets into the mechanic, and I know it's going to need some work, but until it comes back, my brain's not going to rest. Like Mike Tyson is the car problems right now. So, like and I go to therapy every month.
Okay.
And he's the one telling me, he's like,
yeah, what's his perspective?
his perspective is to let the logic in.
Okay.
He goes, your logic side 100% knows that the car is probably fine. And if it isn't, let's say it's not. He goes, there's nothing you can do about it until it goes to mechanic anyway. He goes, you stewing on it is going to do nothing. Mm-hmm. He goes, so why let it bother you until then?
Okay, so let the logic in to me is another way to say, what's the opposite of letting the logic in?
Let the crazy in?
You're holding on to what?
Crazy?
The obtrusive thought, right?
Oh, okay.
Right? I'm not going to use that word, but as a therapist. But yeah, it's like instead of letting the logic in, you're holding on to the obtrusive, the almost could be to the level of obsessive, the way you guys are saying it, right? And you can see my hand, right? It's like
the claw.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like the control, that's what you guys are permeating on and focusing on.
So we're gonna need you to dumb it all down.
Yeah.
This is not your audience.
Let me get rid of my psychobabble.
Yeah. This is not your audience. This is a different level down of audience.
Well, it's actually my people. I just,
So it's okay if you use words like crazy.
All right, cool.
Okay.
All right.
Or insane.
All right.
Especially when you're referring to me. I'll take it.
But yeah, so yeah, like those are the things that like I've had to work on over the years. I've also had medical therapy as well.
Medication.
Yeah, oh yeah. So, and I think we've said this. I'm on sertraline, which is Zoloft.
Yep. SSRI.
Yep.
And
so the weird part about this is I didn't think SSRIs were bad until I started reading more up on them.
Okay.
And so we all, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole after I watched that the Dope Sick show. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that, by the way?
I know all about it
with Michael Keaton.
I kind of lived that life as an
That's true.
addiction counselor.
You probably all know about it. Yeah.
So between intervention and those, I that was my daily life, professional.
Yeah. So this is another major pharmaceutical company. A lot of them push these SSRIs. Mm-hmm. They never mention how dependency works with those.
It changes the brain chemistry.
Yes.
So it changes that. Good. Yeah.
And so I went off of it 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was September. There was no step down. Now, you can't really step down, though, from 25 milligrams. That's the lowest one. Mm-hmm. So you either got to cut it in half or you just go without it. Mm-hmm. The problem is without it, and I think this was because at that point I had been taking it for a couple of years.
Did you stay at the 25?
Oh yeah, we never increased it.
Okay.
And I should say it was 25 or 50. I don't remember which one, but we never deviated from that number. And then I went off it. I seemed fine for like a month or two, probably through December. But come like February, March, I started to get bad panic attacks. Like ones that you feel physically, like Mike was talking about, like
legit panic, not high anxiety, panic attacks.
Like,
yeah,
at least that's what I think they are. I mean, I
hyperventilation.
So no hyperventilation.
Okay,
but extreme tingling feelings down.
That's a sign.
Down both arms, back. Mm-hmm. And no, it was not a heart attack for all you people out there.
Panic attacks can look like a heart attack.
So, it was like it was like a boot loop on a computer, like just rebooting. And so we were supposed to take a drive. We were going to go camping down in Tennessee, down by Dollywood. And I'm sure, like, there were a couple times when I was driving the thing, I kind of got a little, I don't want to say motion sick, but I think it was motion sick at the time. So I was getting a little nervous driving the thing. I can get back to why that was happening later on, but so I was starting to get nervous when I was driving this thing, to the point where like we went out for a camping trip and I literally couldn't come out of the camp. Like it was 2 days of me just chilling out in the thing because I got freaked out over wind.
Okay.
And so I never been anywhere where there was like high winds in this thing, and you're in a tin box. I mean, it's
Sure.
It's basically a big bus.
But it's like a sail. I used to drive a mattress truck. It's like coming across the Bay Bridge empty.
Yeah. Heard those stories talking about obtrusive, like
Yeah.
obsessive thoughts, right? Yeah.
But think about your house when there's a lot of wind and you hear noises, right? Well, now think about it. You're in a kind of like a tin box, and you hear them louder and louder, and you're worried that something's going to crash into it and break something, and then you're not going to be able to get home, and then so it spiraled from there. All right. So then fast forward like another month from that, and we're supposed to go to Tennessee.
So you have that memory,
Yes.
right? And then it's triggered.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. And so we ended up not going to Tennessee. We canceled it because I literally couldn't sleep that night. And when I woke up the next day, I was like, it like the physical aspects of it never went away. So we just said, screw it. We're not going to go. We're not going. Now, luckily since then it's subsided, but I went back on the medicine. And so the reason why I'm telling the story is because when I was off the medicine is when it happened. And when I went back on, it has subsided since then. Like I haven't had it happen again. Even with the memory still vivid of the windy day and situation, it doesn't seem to bother me I shouldn't say at all, but as much. So that's why I do worry about the SSRI drugs, because I would be terrified to go off of this one again. Now, I don't want to increase it, but I'd be terrified to go off of it.
Are you guys ready for some of my theories and philosophies?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wait, are they conspiracies? 'Cause that's more fun.
No, these are, but the disclaimer, right?
Okay, right.
In terms of nothing's all or nothing, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? So,
This is not medical advice. Please talk to your doctor if you want
Yeah.
medical advice. Okay, good.
bingo, thank you. And I'm not diagnosing you guys, right? For a lot of people, psychopharmacology medications like SSRI, Zoloft, Paxil, things like that can help with depression or anxiety. I try to relate it to, for example, a vitamin for a lot of people. Meaning, if you look at it in terms of the medical model, high blood pressure, it's a different organ, right? We're talking about the heart, talking about the brain for mental health. If you got high blood pressure, you guys talk about your health on this podcast. If you have high blood pressure, what are doctors going to give you?
Blood pressure meds.
Yeah, and there's about 50 of them, literally.
I'm on 2 right now.
Yeah, and,
so,
and most people are on 2 to 4.
yeah.
Right. So that's often the first line of defense or offense. But what else helps you with high blood pressure? What else can you do?
Exercise
Exercise, because what does that do?
gives you. It just improves your heart function. Your
Literally, it's a muscle, right? So exercise can affect your high blood pressure. What else can affect your high blood
Not
pressure?
eat garbage.
Yep, nutrition, right? What you put in your body can affect your high blood pressure. Stress can affect high blood pressure. The environment, work, all these things. But what do we often do as a society?
Just take a pill.
Just take a pill, quick fix. So holistically, integratively, that's just one piece. But how many people take anxiety medication and still have anxiety?
Yeah.
Have depression, still have depression, right? So there are very few wonder drug medications. For some people, there are. Like I have some clients that their anxiety is so intrusive they can't break that, and they aren't even able to process or talk without a medication. And I think that's a wonder drug. Some people are suicidal; they take a medication, don't have racing thoughts, so all of a sudden medication. But for most people, I often look at these medications like a vitamin. A vitamin assists, but isn't the whole answer.
Right.
Right. So that's one piece of this thing. And I think your experience was, hey, this is an important piece right now for the anxiety and the obsessive thoughts. Right. So that's an important piece. Next step, the cognitive behavioral stuff. It sounds like your therapist was talking about, what's the word that he said again? Let go of the...
Let the logic in.
Let the logic in. So
Let the crazy go.
that's kind of like a version of cognitive behavioral therapy. Have you ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. So
I've got a book,
okay,
and I don't remember where I put it, which probably isn't. I probably should know where it is, right? It's a green book, though. That doesn't help. I can go. I'll keep
Workbook.
talking. I'll look for it.
so part of what cognitive behavioral therapy does is you have a cognition of thought. And your example of the backstop is it's an intrusive thought, and then it becomes more intense, and then you kind of feed it.
Yeah.
Right. So what cognitive behavioral therapy does? Oh yeah, that's a good one. what cognitive behavioral therapy does is go, okay, what's a more alternative reality-based thought? Makes sense. Here's the thought I don't like. What's a reality alternative thought? Let me fuel that one, and then ultimately it'll change my behavior. That's what CBT is all about.
Okay.
That's good, but that's one piece of what could help you. But you guys both have experience of, I get the logic, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, because we're like, the thing is, like, I like to consider myself a somewhat intelligent person, and it's funny for me because like a lot of this stuff didn't start until adulthood. Like when I was a kid, I don't really remember having these, or at least nothing that I remember. But you know, as an adult, and it really started after my mother died. So my father passed away first. But when my mother died, I was kind of like an orphan. That's kind of when it really intensified. But the first episode of it was really, I mean, there's a whole, if I think back, there's a whole bunch of little ones, but
That's a big one.
Yeah. But one of the bigger ones,
So say that again, right? You remember that kind of obsessive anxiety thoughts when your
mother died.
and why do you think that happened?
Maybe because I felt alone.
You certainly felt emotions,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
what emotions did you feel?
Sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
Maybe.
going. You can piggyback off of them if you had a loved one died, especially a parent. Sadness.
Yeah. There's probably some anger in there.
Okay, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Like, and my mother had some mental health issues
Sure.
that affected me as a kid that I didn't know because when you're a kid you don't know it. There was also some
Fear?
Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit of guilt probably because maybe if I had been there more for her, then she wouldn't have
And you see the internalization, right? You're internalizing. Wait a minute. What's my role in here? Did I break? Good. Now-
Guilt's a big one.
Yeah.
For me.
Now, how old were you when you're
let's see.
give or take?
Let's see. I think it was 5 years ago, so like late 30s.
Okay, you're in your late 30s.
Yeah.
Did anyone help you process through that?
Not professionally.
Yeah.
That was just, hey,
You didn't go see anybody.
no, I got business to take care of because then I had to deal with the estate.
Now we're talking about something.
Yeah. So I had to deal with
Yeah.
her estate, which she died intestate, so there's no will.
Well, you had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. My
Kept you
father,
busy.
when my father passed away, my mother never wrapped up his affairs. So I had to then do 2 estates, and it was in another state
That's stressful.
that was 6 hours away. So dealing with different laws in a different state. And,
Probably a whole house to take care of too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of
Uncomfortable emotions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things, I don't know if you felt this then, like I did. So when my dad passed, one of the things I remember feeling was lost because you didn't have I didn't have the person I went to for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So like you definitely feel lost when you lose a parent that you're kind of close to. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know another word for it, but lost.
And let's generalize or even stereotype. Boys and men are taught what at a young age, socially, culturally.
Don't cry.
Internalize it, deal with it,
You got
keep
it.
going.
Right? And especially if we're not taught that by our father figures particularly, what's going to happen when these big emotions come?
Don't know how to handle them, right?
Yeah. So depression comes in one of two forms frequently. I get numb or apathy, or eventually it's going to come out somehow, maybe an anxiety. That's common.
Yeah. Because I never. It's when my mother died. I didn't shed a tear. It was, let's get down to business. Let's. We have like I said, we have the estate to take care of. We have to get this house ready to sell. What do I do? Do I walk away from? Because I could have.
Yep.
I probably should have. But for all the work that went into it, and then there was that whole thing of, but really, let's bury these emotions deep down where they belong.
We got to cope somehow.
Yeah, and the one thing in dealing with my anxiety, or the thing is like, and I notice the danger of it when I have a couple drinks, it completely goes away, and I can see where people rely on that, but I'm smart enough to know, like, hey, I can't just kill this with alcohol.
Yeah.
So
It works. It works
Yeah.
really well. That's
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah. Because then you're like, oh, it's all BS. Like, you're fine, you know? So, and I'm smart enough to be like, okay, I can't spend the rest of my life, like, wasted because it makes the, you know, these stupid. And when I tell my wife, she's like, you're worried about that? Like, what are you doing? And in my head, I know that's the correct answer, you know, but you think, you know, I used to love flying. I still love airplanes. Anyone listen to the podcast know I love airplanes. But later on in adulthood, I get on a jet and I was convinced that this airplane was going to crash. And that happened after we had kids. Because before it's just me and my wife, like, yeah, or just me, like, whatever. But I know how airplanes work. I know how. I mean, I've spent so much flight simulator time. Like, I could tell you the flap setting speeds and, you know, the V speeds of a 737.
You know too much.
Yeah, but I don't know enough to, like, I know enough to be like, that. Does that sound right? Whereas a normal person not even hearing that. Did that flap retract the right way? Whereas, you know, someone, I know enough to get myself in trouble, but not enough to get myself out of it. So.
Speaking of alcohol, though, we are both drinking a whiskey called Redemption Bourbon. And can I pour you a drink?
I'm allergic.
Are you?
I break out in handcuffs.
The reason why I'm surprised, my mother's allergic to alcohol.
Well, I break out in handcuffs. That's how I'm allergic. So I have an adverse or negative reaction. I've been sober for coming up in 17 years.
Oh, I just picked up what handcuffs meant.
There you go.
Yeah, see, I got it right off the break.
Yeah, I did not. No, like handcuffs. Oh, that must be like hives or something on your wrist, right? I can understand that. Sure.
An allergy. I have an abnormal reaction when I drink, so I stopped drinking after my felony charge when I was 20 years old.
So you have a fun story back.
So there's some stories in there. So yeah, I know what it's like coping with alcohol for sure.
I apologize for offering you the drink.
Hey, 17 years in,
Yeah.
I'm around it. It's all good.
You know, they always say, yeah, it's polite not to offer the recovering alcoholic a drink. And what I do? Hey, I got 3 bottles of whiskey in front of you.
Hey, if
Want some?
If you're not getting sober to be a part of life, then why do it? So yeah.
I mean, luckily for me, like I'll do two of these tonight. I'm done for another probably 2 weeks until I see you again.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, when the weather gets warmer, we'll smoke a cigar outside and have one.
Hey, I listen to the podcast. I know this is part of your new hobby, so enjoy, my friends. Enjoy.
Well, and so we're gonna veer a little bit here because since we're talking about alcohol and how it's used for coping. A podcast Mike listens to. You listen to this guy, is it Huberman?
Andrew Huberman.
Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
So he just had somebody on, and I can't remember who it was. And they were talking about, I guess there's a new study out saying that no alcohol is good for you now. Like before, like there was like some alcohol is good for you. Like a glass of wine at night is good for you. Basically, it was like the whole moderation is fine, right? But now, apparently, the study says that any alcohol is bad for you. And I'm like, well, geez. And I was equating this to like what we were talking about with the fitness gurus in the last episode. If you're someone who's just you're just navigating through life. Like, you can't be an expert on everything. I'm not a doctor. I'm not looking at medical journals. I'm not looking at studies all the time. Or like you, I'm not looking into the specs of an aircraft before I step on it, right? Not everyone has time to read into everything. So I'm like, oh, whiskey, great hobby. Let's go do it. Great. We'll cut the carbs by not having so many beers. That'll be great. This is fun. Like tonight, these whiskeys will have no carbs for our new lifestyle.
Yeah.
Instead of 10 to 30 beers, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the other thing, 10, for me, I would have probably been 5 beers at 100 pop. That's 500 calories. This is 2 whiskeys, and I'm at, 230 calories.
Depending on how long we're here,
right.
I'm looking at, like, on a...
You guys are not just larger. You're bigger guys in general. You're taller guys, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing 10.
Right. But whereas this, cutting calories, cutting carbs, great. Fits into the lifestyle. Now I hear it's all shit and it's all bad for me. Well, what the fuck? You know, like, I've kind of come across this. Like, look, there are vices in life, right? I'm going to have some. Now, are there people that don't have any? Sure.
I disagree with that. But
I guess it depends on the vice, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
some people
yeah.
like some people, and it all depends on what you consider a vice. Some people consider a woman's shoe collection a vice because you spend a ton of money on shoes that you probably don't need. Me, it's cars. I buy one every now and then just for the fuck of it, right? It's the dumbest thing ever. But I don't buy clothes. I don't do that. I don't do 10 other things, but that's what I do. I like to gamble. We've had that on this podcast before. Whereas you don't gamble.
Right. And I don't see anything wrong with gambling. I'm just, first of all, I don't have a lot of money. And second of all, I'm really bad at it. So
you learn.
I shouldn't be doing it. This is something I shouldn't be doing.
But the weird thing is, though, like you listen to that podcast or someone who drinks like this very casually listens to that podcast and like, shit, now I can't. Like, it's almost like your brain will go into guilt mode. And we talked about guilt 2 seconds ago. It's like, well, shit, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do... Like, all the vices in the world are shit now? Well, I think we knew that anyway, but I'm going to have them.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine. Is there probably other healthier ways to get your antioxidants? Yeah, right? I mean, but let's get rid of the obvious one, right? So there's a reason why 4 to 5 drinks and X amount of time is considered binge drinking. There's a medical reason for that. We've got this organ, the liver, and if you drink X amount and X amount of time, the liver does a couple hundred different things. It stops doing every single one of those things almost completely except one.
Processing alcohol.
Get rid of the alcohol process, break it down. Which means at that level, it's a poison. And when people saw me at Tranquility Woods when I was a clinical director, when they're in detox, DE remove, detox, the toxin, you're poisoning yourself. It breaks the blood-brain barrier and you start damaging your brain. So whether it's alcohol that way, whether it's smoking through the lungs through the brain, whether it's IV in the blood, whether it's snorting it through your nose, you start damaging your organs in your brain. Well, that's an issue. So that's obvious.
Yeah.
Right? But I think we sensationalize everything. Hey, if you're actually socially drinking or having fun every once in a while, rock and roll. I break out in handcuffs. I haven't, like they say, it's an allergic reaction. To me, an allergy is another way to say abnormal reaction. If I'm allergic to bees and my arm swells up, I'm not going to be chasing down bees and trying to sting myself with bees.
Right.
But when I have negative things happen to me when I drink, maybe not every time, but too much, and I keep going back to it because of that obsession, well, that's an issue. You guys with your anxiety, the obsessive thoughts, you stop doing it, or you try to. Me with alcohol, I didn't stop.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And some people have a hard time going, I didn't get a DUI every time. Then I can't have a problem. And that's where some people see me for that.
Yeah.
So imbibe, gentlemen. Cheers.
So this one is Redemption Bourbon. And so I just finished mine. I didn't pour that much of it, but I thought it was good.
Yeah. So it's so mellow, I'm drinking it neat.
You?
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen you drink it neat.
Yeah.
Or any whiskey neat.
Yeah.
So this thing is 88 proof, so it's not the strongest we've had on here.
Right.
But it's not the weakest. 44% alcohol by volume. So it's like, that seems to be where our sweet spot is, like right in that 90 range.
Yeah.
Which we're going to try another one in the next episode, which I think is a little bit stronger.
Do you feel you're acclimating? And what I mean by that, I remember the first time you weren't a whiskey or a bourbon drinker.
No.
And it felt like after that first drink, you felt like, I could taste it, or it didn't have that kick or it burn.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what this was. It always seems like the first sip,
Gets you.
it's almost not enjoyable. But then all the subsequent ones are fine.
Yeah.
It's like you've burned off something on your tongue to like, and like now it's ready.
Yeah.
Like,
So I used to smoke. And when I first started smoking, I would cough. And I remember the first time I ever smoked a cigarette, I was visiting my buddy. He went to AU. And we went down and we were going from his dorm to try to go to some party or probably trying to find girls. Some nonsense that we weren't going to accomplish. And he was smoking cigarettes. And I always dogged him out for it. So he offered me. I was like, yeah, I'll have one. He's like, what? And I just coughed. I was like, oh, how could anyone do this? And my dad smoked. I couldn't stand the smell of it. Well, of course, with the aid of the the questionable judgment that alcohol brings on, I started smoking and then eventually turned into smoking all the time, and I didn't cough anymore. In fact, I'd cough if I didn't have one. You know, it was like, and I quit because my father passed away from lung cancer, and that's what made me quit. So it's probably like that. Like eventually you smoke that cigarette and you stop coughing.
I heard smoking weed's like that. I don't know from personal experience, but I heard.
Well, let me tell you.
Somebody
like
told me. I heard it through the rumor mill. I can't. Not that I can do that. For anyone listening, again, these words are my own and don't represent my employer whatsoever. So
Entertainment purposes.
entertainment purposes only. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm gonna stop there before I get myself in trouble.
But yeah, so Huberman, he did a podcast on every vice. So not every vice, but he did caffeine, he did nicotine, he did THC, he did alcohol, and that pretty much covers the big commonly used legal ones. Yeah. And alcohol, essentially, what he said was what his findings were, and was that it's not like any benefit you get from it is outweighed by the negative you get from it. And the habitual consumption of alcohol leads to all of these bad things happening, from your, metabolic health, stuff in your liver, mental health, your brain function, all kinds of things that are brought on by alcohol. And something, okay, well, I'm not a habitual drinker. That's an alcoholic. That's not me. But then when he defined it, I was like, oh crap, that is me.
I can relate to that definition. Yeah.
So, and pretty much what it was any more than 2 drinks a day, that volume. Now, whether you don't drink at all and you save it all up for Friday night, and you binge on Friday night, so you take your 14 drinks you could have all week and you have them on Friday night, or that's habitual consumption. I was like, damn, you just ruined that one for me. But I tried to knock the beer drinking back because that was my thing, just from the health reason of it. Yeah. Because it's just a ton of calories that I don't need. They're empty, worthless calories. Because that's his other point was, there's no nutritional value to it. You might as well eat.
It's a poison.
Yeah. And that's really what it is. Like, some people, and I think there's some chemical that your body develops that allows people to get intoxicated and enjoy it. Some people can't, their body doesn't develop that, so they just get sick. They feel the effects of the poison right off the break, so they just don't drink. Yeah. And there are certain cultures that have it, don't have it, and that's where they're kind of thinking that some of this, people think that certain cultures are more susceptible to alcoholism, like maybe they're more or less of this, and I can't remember, it's some long word that I'm too dumb to pronounce. So
let's spin back into mental health though real quick.
Let me connect that to the mental health.
Go right ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, there could be patterns of why people have a certain quote-unquote drug of choice. People with high anxiety might like alcohol or benzos more because it affects a similar brain receptor, right? So Xanax lowers your anxiety. Benzodiazepines, Ativan, stuff like that.
I have a prescription for Xanax. I'm scared shitless of it.
So your brain can't tell the difference between liquid alcohol and solid alcohol. What I mean by it's the same receptor, the GABA receptor. So for some people, maybe that's why I take to alcohol a little bit more. My brain chemistry might work better to depressant. It slows down your nervous system. One of many reasons, potentially.
Yeah. With Xanax, I'm extremely... I'm downright scared of that drug.
Good.
However...
It works. It works for a plane ride.
So,
right?
yeah.
It works for a panic attack.
Yeah.
It's what it's designed for.
And for me, I use it... I'll take it 2 hours before a flight. And I take one. It's the lowest dose you can get. And I'm a big guy. I can't imagine it does a whole lot going through my blood system because I'm the weight that I am. But I take it, and I'm able to get through the flight. Now, for me, it's not the flight itself. It's the anticipation of getting to and on the plane.
Build up.
Yep. I've had it since I was in my late teens. It's the anticipatory anxiety. Mm-hmm. Once I'm in the situation or in the shit, I'm usually fine. Mm-hmm. For example, we talked about like when I played college sports, and it was like a running gag that I would always have to take the worst smelling crap before a game, and it was just exploding, right? But then once I got in the game, I was generally fine. Like whatever was on my brain, the anxiety part of it shut down. So for me, it's like once the plane takes off, once I know we're not going to be stuck on a tarmac, I only got probably an hour and a half in the air. All the anxiety goes away. I'm done. Mm-hmm. If I do have anxiety, it's because I'm worried I might have to use the bathroom on the plane, and I don't fit in it. So that's a different thing, but I'm not worried about the flight anymore. Mm-hmm. And then once we land, it's almost like it's almost like a huge dopamine rush. Like I just feel so relaxed and so happy once I'm there because it's all over. Mm-hmm. And so it's strange in that effect.
That's the definition of anxiety.
Is it great?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are talking about symptoms and behaviors of anxiety and going, okay, so you see this, you see the logical part of this, but part of the issue now is how can I minimize this? How can I stop that? Medication is a very effective way, or abusing can also be an effective way.
Right.
And part of what therapy can do is like, okay, what else can I have healthy control over to stop this? Like I said, holistically. I'll give you one example. Without identifying information, someone had just panic attacks, and man, I keep having these panic attacks and don't know why. It was random with friends gambling, right? And it was at the barber shop, and he couldn't figure it out. And we actually looked at his childhood, and he remembered a time where, long story short, felt abandoned by his father, and he didn't know if he was ever going to see his dad again. Ooh, that's a traumatic event. So then we looked at that and began to go, how did that affect him moving forward? And he didn't have a sense of control or a feel of abandonment, and that kind of evolved into anxiety for him in different ways. So we began to heal that part of self. This is parts of self work. How his father that left him and his mother couldn't heal that, but how could he heal his childhood self that kind of lives up? That's another form of therapy, parts of self work. But so there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Right. So then, in the very beginning, we talked about how men and women were different and how and what their anxieties are. Are there different triggers for men and women, or do they just react to the same triggers differently?
What's that book? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah. Right.
From, I don't know, 90s or something.
Yeah.
Let's look at the brain again. There's a belief that women have a larger frontal cortex, cerebral cortex, responsible for ration, logic, reason, decision making. So often they see not the bigger picture, right? And what do we often do? The here and now, what's going on, how do we fix, problem solve, stuff like that. So there can be a brain difference. Also hormonal differences. Our cycle with hormones, testosterone, progesterone, are daily, 24-hour cycles. Women's hormones are on a 30-day cycle. Mm-hmm. So we could be stereotyping or generalizing, built different in that way. So the obsessive compulsiveness can be different in terms of worry, problem, solution for men, and they could see the bigger picture and with their worry sometimes. So it's a possibility.
Yeah.
What do y'all think of that? Or did I not simplify it enough?
No, that got deep. You just got right into there. That leaned more into like medical than dumbass podcast right there. So Look, for all you people out there that
Yeah,
don't think we
we-
bring this shit to the table, that was deep. We got into it. And
So-
if there are any ladies listening,
Let me give you another example. A lot of times I get calls from wives or mothers about their sons or husbands, and they say, "Hey, so and so needs to see you." Okay, well, they could make the call, but often the woman who are forward thinkers, are rational, logic oriented, see a lot of things complexly in a complex way, they'll make the call. And then I get the husband or the son, they go, "What do you want to work on?" "I don't know." Meaning that emotional awareness isn't quite there for some of the reasons we already talked about.
Right.
Yeah, because I know like how many men out there, and I'm not even just mental health, but like physical health, has their trip to the doctor been initiated or encouraged or demanded by their wife. So like I'll hobble around on a bad knee for weeks, whereas my wife will do it for a day and she's going to the doctor, and then she looks at me, she's like, "Will you go to the doctor?" Stop. Like she was so proud of me. I had plantar fasciitis.
That hurts,
Which, oh,
especially in the morning.
oh, it is, and it's the dumbest injury. Like when I was young, my injuries were caused by cool stuff, like playing ice hockey or like
Yeah.
motorcycles or like, what, but now they're caused by like, how'd you do that? I got to bed wrong. Like I sneezed the wrong way. But she was so proud of me because I actually called and went to the podiatrist on my own. Like I didn't I tried to fix it myself for a while. It doesn't work. I went to Dr. Google.
Did you do the ice water bottle on your foot?
Oh, I did all stretches. And it's funny because some of the stuff I did on my own, my podiatrist actually told me to do.
Yeah.
But also the cortisone shots helped, and the insoles of my shoes helped, and stuff that I wouldn't have done on my own.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of times men, like we won't even initiate.
Take care of herself.
Yeah. Like
Sometimes though, it's like we don't make. I don't want to generalize, but I'm going to. We don't make the household schedule either, though. Right. So if we're gonna call, and we got to fit it into the household schedule that we're not making. So for all I know, in the back of her mind, she's got something she hadn't put on there yet. So if I make a doctor's appointment, and she's got something going on. Well, now I got to change the appointment. So that becomes like that's just more of a hassle, right? Like I'll just deal with the pain. Like I got this thing going on with my back. That's fine. I'll be all right. It'll go away. Yeah. I don't want to like. I look at like our March calendar, and it like so our calendar, our shared calendar is green. The green events, it's all green. There's no white in there. So like, all right, when am I gonna go fit this in? So that part of it's like convenience, right? It's like I don't want to deal with it. Like I'm not going to deal with this.
That kind of goes back to the cultural norms of pull your bootstraps on. I'll be all right.
Right.
yeah, suck it up.
Suck it up.
And I think that's, and one of the encouraging things I think that people are starting to look at mental health as not a weakness. So, like, say our parents, my parents were baby boomers. Their parents came from the, Depression, World War II generation. If a boy or a young man went to their dad's like, "Dad, I'm just feeling sad. Suck it up, butter. Like, what the hell's the matter with you? You're not a man." Like, so you just bury it and move on.
Yep.
And now, at least, I think that people are more willing to be like, "Hey, I need a," and I always draw the comparison. Like, if there's something wrong with my heart, and I sit around with a bunch of dumbass dudes, and I said, "Man, I think I have pain in my chest." I'd be like, "Go to the doctor, you idiot."
Dumbass. Come
Right,
on. What are you
yeah.
doing?
But if I was like, "Man, I'm just feeling down," like, what the fuck's the matter with you? Suck it up, And that's, but I think a lot of men now are starting to come around like, hey, there's nothing wrong with.
Why do you guys think that's beginning to happen?
I got some ideas. So I think part of it is the public messaging is now more out there. And because people have more access to public messaging,
That's a huge thing.
I mean, you think about it. Everyone has some sort of social media. It is what it is. whether you're on Facebook for Marketplace or whether you're on Instagram or whatever you're on, you've probably just kind of scrolled by some PSA about mental health, or what I think they've gotten really, really correct with is the messaging. And as much as I hate to say influencers, they're using people that have a lot of outreach to kids, not necessarily our age, but with like teenagers, to be okay going to a therapist. Like that's the messaging. It's like, get help. Here's the phone number. It's a constant. I equate it to the old see something, say something campaign. Mm-hmm. Like that was everywhere. Mm-hmm. You couldn't step on a train platform and not see that until.
Oh, they used to put it on the automated overhead, the automatic announcements at airports, train stations.
Oh, yeah.
You'd hear it all the time. If you see something, say something. Don't leave your bags around.
So I think there's been the messaging of it. Plus now they're also amplifying the effects of poor mental health.
There's more education on that.
Like now there's more. Well, there's more messaging about people affected by suicide. Right, and not that that's the only downfall of poor mental health, but
it's an important one to,
to
highlight.
I want to say people are now more aware that this isn't the one thing that happens to like one kid in your high school, and there's more to it than that. Like there's more people out there that are suffering from this, and back what you were talking about with if you were around a group of 5 guys, you said, kind of in my brain about this. The old message was suck it up. Yeah. And now it's like either people just shy away from it and don't talk about it, but you usually get 1 or 2 people that are like, even if they don't want to talk about it with you, like you'll get one that'll be like, hey man, what's up? Or you'll get 1 or 2 of them that says, hey, look, I had that same issue. You should probably go talk to a therapist. I did. They're not afraid to say that they got help.
Yeah, that's the second part. People are more aware, and we're not in the I call it the veil or the denial like we used to be. I mean, gosh, 70s, 80s, 90s, grunge, addicts were the thing. Past 10 years, mental health and recovery and music and Hollywood, that's a huge thing now. Mm-hmm. It's a huge thing. Yeah. And that's the good thing about social media. Yeah, there's a bunch of negative, but you can have a good algorithm too. That you can have good light on it. I mean, gosh, Michael Phelps. You've got all these people that talk about therapy for men. Get the help you need.
Well, that's what I was talking about with influencers, though. Like Michael Phelps is an influencer,
exactly.
And to have him out there, like putting it out there, especially as an athlete,
admitting that he thought about suicide and that became an option.
Yeah.
This is kind of a passionate thing about my career. I've created a drug and alcohol awareness program for when I was a student in a university. I working with this international union, a peer support program, and they literally called me and said, hey, can you help design a program with us? Sure. What do you want to do? Change the culture of construction. You want me to do what? But they're doing that. They're being proactive with their apprenticeship. They're giving them things in their first 3 years, the peer support programs, what services that you do have, and having these men and a small percentage of women. When I teach this class, and it's for all of North America, and I got these 30 people, every single one in this room that I'm teaching a peer support program with, every single one of them is either in recovery themselves with substance use, have been directly affected by suicide, someone close to them in their family or close to them, or have mental health themselves. Everyone is affected by this. The difference is we're just not kind of shoving it down and in denial of it. That's the big difference.
That's probably a perfect place to end this show. For anyone out there who needs help, get help. I'm going to post the state of Maryland phone numbers. I believe they're out there, plus the website. There's
plenty.
I believe it's Department of Mental Health, or is it just Department of Health?
You can call, just like 911, there's 988. Okay. If you have a mental health crisis, and it's not a 911 crisis, you'll talk to someone who's trained, whether it's, yeah, sure, suicide or suicidal thoughts, but it can be depression, anxiety, grief, whatever it is that you feel it's to the level of a crisis. Give them a call, and there's someone in your local region or even county that will pick that up. And that just recently rolled out a couple months ago.
That's good information. And one thing, when we had my sister-in-law was on, she's a clinical social worker. So I always like to try to end these. Well, we did it with her. Like, if you're someone who's never, aside from 988, if you're someone who's never been, you recognize that you need to speak to somebody, but you've never done it. Like, how would someone in that position go through? Like, and like, if you just real quick go over the process of it, so that if there's somebody out there that's listening, they're like, okay, I'm not going to show up and get put in a straitjacket.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Once again, those are the stigmas. Those are the things that I'll do a plug, since you guys are so kind and have plugged mine. But there's, by the time this episode's out, we did an episode called "Why Go to Therapy," and it's about the stigmas and the things that prevent us from doing it. But I'm fortunate enough in my own practice that I talk to him for 5-10 minutes, and then half of the stigma before you're in front of me and we're talking are already gone. I'm shooting the shit with you as a guy, let alone someone with letters behind my name. That's part of it. One of the things that I really liked when I was at the VA and I worked with the suicide prevention team, they had a bunch of magnets. It was at Perry Point, and it said it takes the courage and the strength of a warrior to ask for help. Well, that kind of changes the perspective of getting that kind of help that we really want or need, whether it's to the level of anxiety, depression, or to the level of something more significant, quote unquote significant, of, gosh, do I even want to be here? And anything in between.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you to Cheers and Spirits for sponsoring this episode.
I love it.
For all your alcohol needs. Maybe you don't need or want as much alcohol after this episode.
If there's a party, you might need it.
Right.
So it makes a great gift.
Or if you're just sitting around talking with some friends and you want to pop one back, Cheers and Spirits is the place to go. That's where Mike got this Redemption bourbon. Cheers and Spirits in the Arnold Plaza in Arnold, Maryland. We'll put a link to their Facebook page below. A Therapist, a Buddhist, and You is Luke's podcast with Zalma. When do you guys release episodes?
Every Tuesday, early Tuesday morning.
So you got on the same schedule we do.
Yeah.
So look at that. You can download two apps. You can download ours, download theirs.
I lied. It's Monday morning.
No. Okay. Mondays. Who's doing stuff on Mondays?
Well, that's why I did it.
Good. So
download theirs on Monday, ours on Tuesday, and you got a nice 2 hours worth of show to listen to from that.
There you go.
The last day for the contest. Follow us on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe on YouTube and like our Facebook page. If you do all three, you're entered into the contest. You don't have to send us a note. But you can always send us a note and say hi. And I'm trying to think, did I forget anything? DrivewayBeersPodcast.com.
Yep. Smash that like button.
Smash it. Get on that. If you do need any mental health help, I'll put the link to Luke's website in the description as well. I'll also put any Maryland State support systems out there. I'll also put that in the description below. 988 is a emergency helpline for mental health if you need it. And we will see you next time.